Welcome back to the Spitfire podcast. I'm your host, Motso. We all know that SEO recently got a major shakeup, and that's why we brought two SEO experts to unpack this topic for us. So right now I'm going to hand over to our strategic director, Alison Leishman. Over to you, Ellie.
I'm Ellie. I work at Spitfire. I will now hand over to Nicole and Michelle to actually introduce themselves.
Right. Well, I'm Nicole. I'm the SEO team lead here at Spitfire, and I am a passionate SEO nerd. I have 14 years of experience in SEO and social media and the digital marketing space, working across industries such as B2B, fintech, IT, and medical industries. And I hand over to Michelle.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Michelle. I'm an agency owner for just over 15 years now. I've always been in marketing. First started off with Google Ads, but then slowly merged into SEO. I've worked with so many different SEO companies, and there's such a differing of opinions. And we basically took about a year to figure it out ourselves. We work across the motor trade, insurance, finance, tourism, hospitality, mining, education, retail, large retail brands. And yeah, that's me. I absolutely love what I do. SEO is a passion of mine. It's complicated. It's wrapped my brain. But yeah, it's amazing to see the results that you can get your clients, like real results. So I'm going to kick off with a question for both of you, which is, if you could capture SEO evolution in 3 sentences, how would you do that?
3 sentences.
You only have 3 sentences.
Working across SEO over the years, I've seen it evolve drastically, specifically within the last year, so to speak. So I would definitely say ever evolving if I had to capture it in a word. Ever evolving, and I would also capture it in a word such as exciting, because it's never the same. Michelle, I'm sure you agree. 2 days are the same, and it's always changing and evolving.
It is definitely ever evolving, but AI, GEO, relies heavily on traditional SEO. I think obviously it's a little bit more complicated, but I think a lot more effort needs to be put into SEO. A lot more effort. So that's as the seat. If you want me to go into more detail, I'm happy to do it. But if you understand SEO, GEO will be a walk in the park, basically. You just have to put in a little bit more hours. Okay, so
Absolutely.
take me through the journey, Mish, from SEO prior to snippets to snippets to AI overviews. Before, it was predominantly focused on keywords, how many times you say the keywords on your website, all of that. Then Google started introducing their own snippets because they want to answer people's questions quicker, right? And it's also a way of people exploring different topics quickly without jumping from website to website. Then it moved into your AI overview. Your AI overview, ultimately what Google is trying to do is they're trying to give people an answer as quickly as possible. Although the AI overview it doesn't necessarily appear for every single keyword or every single search intent. It's predominantly focused more on your informational intent keywords, so people looking for information. But yeah, that's basically how it's evolved. It's just giving people information quicker and giving them a quick overview. So what you'll start to see happen is people will make a decision before actually going to your website, depending on the industry, depending on the content that they'll consume. Okay. Next, anything else on that?
I think Michelle what you said really hit the nail on the head. And, I think at the end of the day, Google tries to provide the best user experience. So while it's sometimes running experiments in the background that we don't always see, I think it always consistently tests out the best sort of user experience. So, I mean, years ago, obviously, I think it was quite easy to be an SEO. You could have your team blue links, keyword stuff a lot, things that are called black hat marketing now. But I think at the end of the day, it's been increasingly evident that Google prioritizes the user experience to provide the pursuit sort of results.
Yeah, and do you think that there's a sense of a bit of a mistrust of AI in some people? So I like the AI overviews, but I always kind of want to know where it's come from. Like that's important for me. And the same with the snippets, like going like, okay, well, what is that source? Because maybe I'm just a bit jaded and I'm like, okay, you can try get featured for a snippet, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're the source that I trust if it's an area of my expertise. Like how do you is there anything you can do to overcome that? There's like a lot of conversation around being featured for a snippet. Do you do the same things? And I'll start with you, this kind of Nicole. You do the same things to be featured for a snippet if you do for an AI overview? Like what changes in your strategy?
I think for me, I always see it as a sort of layered approach. So looking at your foundational SEO, are you targeting the correct keywords? Is your site sound? Is your technical SEO intact? So basically, is your housekeeping intact? And then once that is done, I think the AI part of it is not just, okay, you'll appear for these keywords and make sure that you rank, but it's that additional layer of context. And I think what AI engines does is that they actually look for the relationship and the context between the keywords to look for the meaning. It's not just about purely ranking, but also providing that expert, authoritative content that people trust, that they find relevant.
So it's like informational authority, essentially, right? Because I think, Michelle, you said around it being, it's more for the informational intent that AI takes to rank.
So AI, yeah, so they're trying to answer questions for you. And I think, look, it will definitely potentially evolve into different sorts of intent keywords, like transactional, commercial intent keywords. But yeah, look, I think when it comes to generative engine optimization, it's also heavily relies on PR. So if your website is set up in a proper way when it comes to SEO, you've got your keywords, you've got your technical SEO, your schema markups, because the GEO does look at that. These large language models, they do look at all those cues. But I think what's going to change for people is they're going to have to start writing more content and cite sources as well. So generally before, people didn't want to lose their late juice. So they wouldn't put other links on their website referring to other sources. But obviously with the GEO, you're going to have to start doing that because it's going to look for that correlation. And also PR links or these other source links coming to your website.
Yes. And to add on to that, I think what I've also seen, to your point, Mesh, is looking at also how AI refers to site in terms of share of voice and brand sentiment. How do people talk about your company? And sort of in that context. So that's also where PR is really important because it really looks at how credible you are. Are you seen as an expert? Are you seen as an authority in that space?
And that feeds into what you were saying about user experience as well, because the importance of trust factors like reviews, comes into play if you're publishing reviews. Does that also
Big time.
get brought into it?
Absolutely.
You know me, my background is sort of academic. And well, not sort of, but it is. So citing sources is like a really big thing for me. And anyone who's been in content at Spitfire knows that really, really well. So when it comes to citing sources, is hyperlinking a source sufficient? Do we need to go backwards
as well?
Yeah, and quotes. Do we need to go back to a more academic approach sometimes where you list sources at the end? Because I have seen a couple of articles now coming out where at the end of the article they go sources cited in this article, and it lists them and hyperlinks them at the end. And is that a strategy for GEO?
It wants to look for that. I don't want to say that it's a ranking signal, because traditionally we would look for ranking, or we would try give Google all the correct ranking signals. But yeah, citing sources are very important. Personally, I'm not a fan, because in my mind it's going to take away from your website. So if you can become almost your own sword, that could be a lot better. So if you're writing content on digital marketing, for instance, go use your own article that you've written about another topic as your source if you are citing it in this new blog that you are writing. I've seen other companies do that. People are slowly starting to do that. If you can almost keep them on your website, in my opinion, that is the best.
I agree with that. Just to add to that as well, I think that also adds to building your own expertise and having that like authority in that specific topic. Because I think the thing with AI is that I've seen quite a lot is it's a lot of generalized content, and you need to add in your own expert opinion and your own expertise in that specific area. And that's what makes your content magical, and that's what makes it stand out.
Okay, so I'm going to throw something at you, which is that around going, people are going to go look at other sites anyway, right? So when you're going through a research journey or any kind of buying journey, you're going to get to a comparison phase. So once you get to that phase, so if I'm looking to buy a new phone, I might look at Samsung and look at their product. But then I'm going to go to review sites, because Samsung's going to tell me all the things about it, and they might or might not have a component on their site with reviews, but I want to go to Tech Central or somewhere independent. So as a brand owner, would it not be like a showing an element of kind of trust in your product and your consumer that you go and look at our reviews on these 3 sites, so that at least you are going to be directing them to reviews which you feel reflect your brand? So that would be the argument for going, it's okay to go off site because you're doing it strategically.
I've seen a lot of sites pulling in, for instance, carousels or widgets like Trustpilot or Google My Business reviews. And I think it's also being available in more than one space and taking up that real estate. So, for instance, people can read your reviews on Hello Pizza. They can read it on Google My Business. You can add schema markup to make sure that the AI engines and search engines alike reference you in a structured manner. So I think it's not just, like you say, being on one site, but also demonstrating that credibility and trustworthiness across other platforms.
And would
as
that
well.
be the same for traditional SEO and GEO?
It's exactly the same. But I think what's happening this time around with GEO is that companies, I think, are being held a little bit more accountable. So before people can make themselves look amazing and they can tell you on their website how amazing they are, But what people are looking for, and they've been looking for it for a while now, even before the introduction of snippets, even before the introduction of the AI overview, people generally trust reviews that they can see people have written themselves. So long gone are the days when you have a page on your website where you just have like a bunch of reviews. Because a lot of people would say, how do I know that those reviews were actually written by those people? So that's why Google My Business is such an important tool. Google has become a lot more strict. You can't just go and write a bunch of reviews for yourself or get a whole bunch of people to write reviews. Google is actually cracking down and removing reviews that they feel are fake.
So does Google suck these days?
Definitely not. I think people's attention span is becoming a lot shorter and people want to get to the point quicker. I think if you're a company and you're paying a marketing companies and SEO companies to do your SEO for you, you might be like, wow, okay, this is a lot. But personally, for me, not at all. I'm a big proponent of Google. Obviously, if there's other forms that are being introduced, forms of marketing or search engines being introduced, I would definitely look at it. But Google, a lot of these things still use Google a lot.
We speak a lot about storytelling in marketing, in sales. What role does storytelling play when you create content? Particularly, how does storytelling resonate with AI search engines?
For me, it's to the point Mish just mentioned, that authenticity factor. So I think humanizing the content and adding that personal touch and that personal background and experience to the content makes it a good story. And it takes it from just being an AI generated generic story to a really good and relevant story, and adding that context behind and the meaning behind the actual story.
You need to have context when it comes to the content that you are creating on your website. So I think gone are the days of just having all these big flashy pictures and saying, we're amazing, choose us. No, you actually have to explain and prove why you are amazing. So storytelling does play a big role. I think also that's a very big part when it comes to sales in general itself. But it's also about creating that emotional connection with your audience. So I'm very, very analytical. I've got a very technical brain, because if you ask me how important is storytelling, I would immediately go into, okay, what particular journey are we referring to? Okay, in that instance, this would be the story that you would tell. If someone is top of the funnel, that's the story. Middle of the funnel, there's a different story. Bottom of the funnel, it's straight to the point. So yeah, that's storytelling is always very, very important, but you need to be authentic in your storytelling.
So what you're saying there about storytelling leads really well and talking about taking people on a journey into inbound strategy, because inbound strategy is really around engagement. It's around taking people on journeys, about moving them, kind of through their journey. And I suppose the question is, when we do that, we do it across multiple channels, because no one touches only one channel. So, Motso, when you research, what channels do you research on?
Well, coming back to SEO GO, recently Google has introduced, I've seen a new tab rather that says short videos. And that's a very interesting one, because of now we've seen that a lot of people are making use of videos to search for information. And then obviously your new AI search engines like the Perplexity, that has also became very, very important in recent times. So for me, before that, I always say I'll go to Google, but now with this whole change, usually I would still go to Google, but I would go, especially if I'm looking for something specific and it's stay in video format, I would go to video, whether YouTube or if maybe I'm researching something else that needs more, like you said, citations, I would go to Perplexity. So I think AI has really changed a lot of how we search nowadays. And with tools like Perplexity, ChatGPT now having a search functionality now, it's even escalated. So for me, those are the tools that I personally would refer to when it comes to researching.
Yeah. And so I suppose the question to the two of you then is, how do we integrate GE so that we can enhance all of these channels?
To your point also, is having that multimodal content. So it's not just only text-based, but it's having images, it's having videos, and it's about, I think, ensuring a consistent experience across various platforms. So for instance, having a specific campaign and talking about it on YouTube and repurposing that into a reel on Instagram and then writing a blog about that, which gives you that consistent message across all of the platforms. But at the same time, also making sure that you address your user engagement behind it to add that context to what you're talking about.
So just to add to that, when I say Google, we obviously mean YouTube. Then when it goes to your social, and that touches on what Nicole said earlier about a layered approach.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we've got clients that only rank on Google. Every client is different. Some clients are going to create video content. Some clients are not going to have to create video content. But when you are dealing with these larger clients that need a lot more babysitting, a lot more in their industry, they need to convince users or their potential customers, be it B2C or B2B, a little bit more. You're going to have to look at your LinkedIn strategy. You're going to have to look at your YouTube strategy. There's obviously the YouTube SEO, which also ties into the GEO. So that's also important. People think when you say SEO, it's just about websites. It's really not. It's also about Google My Business profiles. There's an SEO element on that. Your social media channels, having the same tone of voice, having the same brand tone, having the same brand name across everything, so that Google can basically match everything together. So you'll oftentimes find, and I'll be very honest with you, there's some big blue chip companies that we've dealt with, also in the insurance space. They would have one name on their website and they would have one specific name on their social media channels. And we're like, no. We have to basically have everything in a way the same so that Google can see you and you can own your own brand page. So, yeah, I mean, look, that is vitally important to make sure that you look at all of the channels depending on the client. And video also, completely agree with you, okay? There's so many different things that you have to consider. And video is one of those.
Can you separate a SEO strategy and a content strategy?
For me, stupidly. I like your answers.
Straight to the point.
SEO lives within content. Content lives within SEO.
Yes.
Can't live in isolation.
There's actually something that I want to add to that, and that's something that a lot of companies don't know about. So there's something called keyword cannibalization. It always comes down to keywords because the word is the thing. That's the intent. That's what the person types in or searches or whatever they do. Even if they use voice search, it always starts with a word or it starts with a question, right? So keyword strategies will absolutely never die. You cannot cannibalize. That's why you can't cannibalize keywords, because you can actually end up confusing Google. So if you do have a content strategy, you have to make sure that that content strategy matches your SEO so that you don't compete against yourself on Google, because then you just basically fall off the face of the earth. If you're not on the first page of Google, you don't actually exist. Oh, they say. So it's a hard matter.
Okay. So we use HubSpot. Michelle, you know that, and you also work within the HubSpot landscape. And how does HubSpot help facilitate SEO, essentially, I suppose?
It's a unified platform because it allows you to understand how your content performs. It helps you understand where SEO fits into that journey. And it also provides you with on-site, on-page recommendations. That's really useful for optimizing your page. So streamlining and optimizing, I just created a new word. I knew how to page, right? So I think that's been really helpful, and also just understanding other areas like the user journey and the conversion path and the behavior that also plays a role into how you create content. I also do like using the topics tool a lot in HubSpot, because that also helps you make sure that you are using that topic and cluster approach, and that you are creating authority in that area that you are speaking to.
Cool. Michelle, I mean, I know you also use it.
What I really like about HubSpot is it has the whole, you can look at your leads from beginning to end. You can do comparisons. I feel like when it comes to SEO, and I'm just being very, very honest, even if you have an amazing tool such as HubSpot, and I really do believe HubSpot is amazing, there's no one size fits all, and there's no one software tackle that can do everything for you. You still need your real world person expert to actually interpret data, spit that in, and then make sure that it performs the way that it should. So yeah, look, I think HubSpot is amazing, but there's still the traditional SEO methods that need to be applied. So for instance, your schema markup, the content, the structure of the content on the page. When I say structure, it's not just necessarily using bullet points so that the AI overview can read it nicely, numbers and bullet points. I'm talking about also for the user itself. So you also going to have to create a web page that is heavily conversion focused. Even if it is just a blog post, you focus on the intent. But ultimately, there's a reason why someone is reading something, because they're looking for something. If it's informational, yes. But if it's like a transactional or a commercial keyword, or even navigational, they're looking for something. Maybe they want to speak to someone. So having clear call to actions, even in blog posts, I've seen from blog posts that we've tested out, having a good call to action in a blog post and having sources that you cite within your own website works tremendously well.
I mean, I think if you're going to summarize that, it's like you need a strategy, right? So you need a conversion-driven strategy for content, for SEO, for GEO. Okay. I keep talking SEO, right? But we're actually talking about GEO. Is GEO going to become the terminology as opposed to SEO?
I think people are still talking and will still be talking about SEO. And I think it's not in isolation, because it's SEO, it's search engine optimization, but it's also optimizing for answer engines. So generative engine optimization. And it's also search engine everywhere. So it's optimizing across various different platforms to provide that relevant, good quality information that people essentially want.
I think clients will still refer to it as SEO or AI SEO, because SEO is an ingrained keyword. But I think people in the marketing industry, in the digital industry, will refer to it as GEO.
Is there a job to be done to educate people about the importance of GEO and having a GEO strategy partnered with your SEO strategy?
Yes, definitely. if you as a company or a marketing manager has a very good SEO partner or digital marketing partner, and if they're really worth their salt, they would actually tell you beforehand that we need to start looking at GEO. So yes, I think it is different, but it's also the same in many ways, because it will now start pulling in your PR departments, your media departments as well, and informing SEO, informing them of a proper content strategy that needs to be followed.
Absolutely.
I think that there's a lot of almost talk about that content is no longer as important as it was, because there's so much content. And what I'm hearing you both say is content is more important than ever before. And when you're looking at content, you need to be taking into consideration now not just SEO and journeys, but even more so what we used to always talk about as you need to become the trusted advisor. But again, it is that authoritative, authentic content that is what's going to make you stand out. You have to have an opinion. You have to have a voice. It's not good enough to just give what everyone is sharing. You need a take.
But there's something that I want to add to that. And what we have seen over years of doing SEO for clients and have started doing GEO for our clients is, if you don't stay ahead of the game, people think if you do SEO once, you're fine. If you've got a couple of blogs, you're fine. If you've got a few pages that rank on the first page of Google, you're fine. But what people fail to realize is that as time progresses, your competitors are going to start looking at their own content. They're going to start upgrading the pages. They're going to have it more conversion focused, or it's going to give more information, or they're going to have better infographics, and they're going to have content, more content rich page. What you'll do slowly over time start to see that your rankings will start to decline. So this is, I don't want to say it's the unfortunate part of SEO and GEO, but it's something that you literally have to work on every single night. We've got a client now that's been with us for about 8 years. We first started doing their Google ads, and initially, because Google ads, that whole keyword research journey informed SEO, informed the landing pages. We've subtly been doing SEO for them, but only like officially over the last 5 years. And to this day, they are still focusing on SEO every single night.
No. Absolutely. I agree with that. It's not a set and forget thing. It's not, now I've got the content. I've got content, I'm golden. Because you're not golden. You need to consistently work at it. And, like you said, Mish, you need to stay ahead of the competition. Because if you're not going to spot those gaps, they are going to spot those gaps, and they are going to outrank you. So it's a tough game. SEO is not a magic one solution. It's a tough game, and you have to strategize to decide on where you want to focus and where you want to play, because you can't play everywhere. It's a massive field. I'm sure Mish will agree with me. And you have to have a specific focus and create authority in your space.
I went to a session at Inbound a couple of years ago at the Inbound conference, and it was preparing for GEO before it was called GEO. And I remember one of the takeaways was around, you need to own an idea, or you need to have an idea, and you need to own the idea to the extent of owning the URL, and then making sure that you are creating content and working constantly
Regularly.
on that idea. And it feeds so much into what you're saying about staying ahead, having an idea like you were saying, Nicole, and constantly reviewing it, refining, adding to it, in order to remain relevant, really.
Absolutely.
And also not to fearmonger, but at the end of the day, you must always remember, depending on what industry you are in, but generally when you are talking to brands, if you are a brand yourself, competitors are inevitable. And they are going to be brands that are trying to be better than you. It might take a year, 2 years, but eventually they will catch up to you if you haven't worked on it consistently.
Yeah. And Simon Sinek calls them their worthy rivals. As you've been talking, there's 4 words that I've picked up on. And if we were looking at the kind of values potentially of SEO and GO, tell me if this is right. It is evolving, authentic, consistent, and intent driven.
Nail on the head.
Anything missing? Other than exciting and passion for you guys and all of those things.
I think that is the core of TER and SEO.
Well, I would add one thing.
I knew you would.
It's called EAT.
Yeah. Okay.
Experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Although Google uses that, but now even more so than before.
Okay, so we're going to have a GO SEO persona, right? And they're going to identify themselves by going, I'm an evolving, authentic, consistent, intent-driven product. Can you share a real-world example where implementing GO, Generative Engine Optimization, transformed the business's online visibility?
Yeah, so with one of our clients, I have identified intent-driven keywords. I've also gone and looked at how the different search engines talk about this client, what their share of voice is, their brand sentiment, strengths and weaknesses. And then also from an SEO point of view, identified the particular keywords and married them up in terms of understanding the intent and context behind that. That also allowed me to identify gaps in the content where competitors were outranking our clients and coming up with a strategy to address those content gaps. Also, obviously, coming into play with strengths and weaknesses identified by these AI engines, Perplexity, Gemini, and OpenAI. So I've integrated that into a cohesive, unified strategy that addresses all of those gaps, and in that way I managed to create content that is visible and that drives engagement.
Cool. Michelle, same question to you.
Well, over the multitude of clients that we have all in the one third-party software, we started slowly seeing everyone, even the clients that we're not doing SEO for, we're just doing their digital marketing strategies. You can see that the traffic to their website are decreasing. Everyone is doing this. Everyone's doing this. So what we started doing and actually implementing for our clients is creating very specialized blogs that are answering keywords, and they are the first in their industry to answer those keywords, and we actually get them to rank for an AI overview snippet.
Cool.
And yeah, if you can't get your clients results within 3 months, I would personally think you need to look at other avenues. But yeah, within a very short period of time, if everything is set up correctly, we got them results quite quickly for that.
I like what what's said around when Nicole captured a story about looking at intent, context, and sentiment for GEO and keyword for SEO. And you did the same in your instance, Michelle, with the keyword, but then the intent, the uniqueness, and the context as well for the GEO, and kind of really captured what fundamentally seems to be a difference between the two.
Yeah, I think it's about making sure that you address everything. So, as we said, like having a layered approach. So, making sure at the core, your SEO is sound and you selecting competitive keywords that are, have good search demand, but also the intent that you're trying to capture. But then layering it with that additional context to make sure you're covering the ground from a GEO perspective.
Yeah. And you both spoke about the gaps and how important that gap is. Like first in industry, identifying the gap and creating the content for the gap. That's really important. Okay.
And there's such an opportunity for that right now because not a lot of companies are doing it yet.
So that goes nicely into this one, right? Okay, so Michelle, your turn to start. Okay, so looking ahead, how do you see generative engine optimization evolving in the next year, and what trends should marketers be watching?
It's going to rely heavily on the content structure of your blogs or your content or your landing pages. I feel people are going to start making their decisions before they get to your website. So they're going to do their research off-site, and then they'll come to your website to convert or do a little bit of research, but generally they'll come and convert when they've already made their decision. I think conversational SEO is going to be quite big, where you're going to have to start creating blogs, like proper blogs, but not the traditional form of blogs with just writing stuff for the sake of writing stuff. Actually doing a proper content strategy. It's going to actually form part of the core of the SEO, is how your conversational SEO blog posts and content is going to fit within your whole marketing strategy. Topical authority is also very, very big, and people are going to have to focus on that. And I think people are going to have to start spending a lot of money on PR. A lot.
Yeah. And we're already seeing that. Definitely seeing that. Yeah. Nicole?
Mish, I agree with everything you said. I think also along with that, I mean, when you talked about also structuring the content, I think schema markup is also really important. Because that also just helps search engines and AI engines alike just understand and read the content easier and serve it to the user. So I think that's really important. I think obviously taking into account Google's EAT framework as well, to make sure that that content addresses that expertise, experience, authority, and trustworthiness aspects as well. And I think it's also writing content, I think, in a way that it addresses the user's answer within that first paragraph, because that is what like the AI overviews.
Anyone who knows me is like, Keith, just based on paragraph, get to the point, and then I'll decide if I want to go further.
Exactly. So like in that first passage, tell them what they want to go, and then, make sure that you go in depth for those people that like are there for the content and providing that value. I think also one big takeaway I took from last year's Inbound was that AI creates and humans curate.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get lost in generating content just for like the sake of having fresh content, because Google loves fresh content, and getting stuck in that, but it's providing that value and that human touch. And I've seen this trend across social as well. relating. And this goes back into storytelling as well, and having that narrative that really not only in a logical way, but for the reader on an emotional level to connect with them. So I think you are appealing to the human, but also to the robot behind that.
Michelle, when you were talking there and you were talking about how people come to websites and often they come ready to convert. I was actually having a conversation with Kieran, who's our head of strategy, and I said I want to write an article, but we should do an episode on it, Motso, intent.
Okay.
Which is called, I don't know if we want to call it the death of the MQL or the reframing of the MQL, because we are seeing across clients, the number of marketing qualified leads that come in is decreasing, because that's that research phase. And it talks exactly to what you're saying there. And I think that it's around the fact that people do a lot of research in many other places, whether that is in tools like Perplexity, YouTube, social media, right?
Yeah.
And then they come to websites and then they are almost ready to commit.
Yeah.
So reframing our strategies and our nurturing and our journeys around this new behavior that we are definitely seeing that is coming through with AI. Anyway, so there's another episode that we can have.
Okay.
That'll be interesting. We had a little break and Michelle said she wanted to tell us something about ChatGPT. So I'm going to give you the floor. Off you go.
So when ChatGPT launched, everyone was like freaking out in the industry and the marketing industry, going, "Oh my gosh, what are they going to do? People are going to start using ChatGPT. It's going to replace marketing, and it's going to replace this, it's going to replace that." And I was like, "No, hang on a second. This is actually a tool that people are going to be using when it comes to generating content, doing research, and all of that." But what is very, very important to realize is that you actually need to know what questions to ask ChatGPT, and they curate. Obviously, like Nicole said, you have to curate the content that the AI is giving you. But what people don't realize is, and I can see this from a lot of our clients' competitors, you can see that they're generating AI content. But then what's happening is, if there's citation sources or link sources in the articles, there's actually a ChatGPT UTM link at the back of those sources. So now what websites can start to see, even your own websites, if you are a topical authority on insert whatever, you can actually start to see that ChatGPT is linking to your website and people are landing on your website. And I think we'll start to see that coming through like Google Analytics or whatever, even in HubSpot, as time goes on. But people need to be wary if they use ChatGPT, because I think what is going to start happening is you're going to, as they're doing with video content now, you have to say that this is AI generated content. You're going to have to start saying that on websites as well. But what I feel is you can use ChatGPT to do the outline for you, but then you have to put in your own human elements. Because people will very quickly see if this is just like robot generated content. So I feel the future of this is be careful, do research, test things out. You also need to know what to look out for. It was purely by accident that I came across the fact that ChatGPT was putting UTM links on their content. And if you just go and copy and paste that onto your website, you are basically advertising that I've got this from a language model. So, yeah, I think people think that it's this amazing be-all, end-all. It's not. You're still going to have to spend a lot of hours curating that content, fixing the content, changing it. Even before ChatGPT, there was something that we use called Jasper.
Yeah.
We've managed to get a website you ran for a very high keyword difficulty keyword in the insurance industry on the first page, and it's still there because we used Jasper to write the content, the LR content, but then we had multiple people curate the content, and now we're using that content, and it's been ranking now for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So ChatGPT is not the be-all and end-all, but it's definitely a big part of it, though.
Yeah, I think it's going to be compulsory for companies to have AI manifestos and things such as that. I know at Spitfire we've got a manifesto which we've published, an AI manifesto, and we commit to, if we're using AI content, that we acknowledge that, that we tell people that, and we ask our clients before we use AI on any client work, what is your view on using AI? Because a lot of clients do have a no AI policy. Next question, Nicole. What are common pitfalls or misconceptions that marketers face when shifting from traditional SEO to GEO strategies?
I think, Ali, that this ties in nicely with what Mesh has just mentioned around that transparency, and also just making sure to not just use the content generated by AI as it is. I think it's easy to see it as a silver bullet solution, but at the end of the day, you have to change the content. You have to tweak it. You have to make it relevant and good quality content to appeal to the reader and the user and to address the intent behind that search. So I think that is one big thing. Obviously, to humanize the content, as I mentioned earlier, also very big thing. And then I also think that at the end of the day, we still need to look at your common, call it building blocks of your technical SEO to make sure that, and the way that I like to refer to it is to make sure that your house is in order. So at the very ground, solid foundation, are you addressing all the key things that you should be addressing from an SEO point of view? Are you addressing site speed? Because that really impacts your rankings, that impacts your user experience. Are you making sure that you have alt text behind your images? Do you have the correct URL structure? Is your site easy to navigate? So I think those things are still important and that they shouldn't be overlooked. And they also just making sure that you are speaking to, you're speaking to your audience and to that specific persona to aid the user journey.
Thank you. Michelle?
So I think a common misconception is, although I'm a big preacher of keywords, there is going to be a slight shift from keywords into intent. So I feel people should not just focus on the keywords, they should focus on the intent. Ultimately, if I can break it down in dummy Google for Dummies or GEO for Dummies, is if you are creating a piece of content and you've done the research behind that content, knowing that there's people looking for that answer or they're looking for that information, do your best to make sure that you are not manipulative, that you are giving good content, and you're really trying to help the person and that you structure the content correctly. And if you've got that right and people scroll, because that's something that GA4, Google Analytics 4 has introduced, page scroll is actually a signal now for SEO. So if someone lands on your website and they start scrolling, and the longer they stay on your site, but not QLOP now, because that's a different thing. In the past, people used to say, the longer people stay on your website, the more pages they go onto your website, the better it is. Yes, maybe. If they go to 2 or 3 pages max, it's actually a negative thing now, the longer people stay on your website, because that tells Google that people are not finding what they're looking for. They might get the sense that there's something there, but they're not getting what they're looking for. And then eventually Google will overcome And when I say Google, I also mean the language models, the AI language models. They will start to see, okay, this is not really what people are looking for because it looks at the behavior. And then you'll just start to drop in rankings, or your featured, you being featured in the AI results will just basically disappear.
Thank you. Okay, last one. Michelle, what best practices can be adopted to maintain trust while leveraging advanced GEO techniques?
Okay, so definitely content accuracy and content structure. Do your research. Make sure that you're not just writing something that answers a whole bunch of questions. You focus on one topic, but then you've got other articles going into more detail if people want to read further. Demonstrating the experience, expertise, authority, and trust on your website. Always have trust factors. We generally like to put that at the top. The older your domain is, the better. The more content you publish on your domain, the better, but good content, not just any content. And yeah, don't manipulate users. Don't try force them down a funnel. Give them the option, give them multiple options, but also don't confuse them. And maintain that same brand tone of voice across all of the channels. Consistency is definitely key.
Going back to the accuracy, so making sure that what content you put out there is reliable and it's fact-checked, because we know that AI can sometimes hallucinate and make up answers, and you don't want to be the company that's caught out red-handed for just simply not fact-checking and just putting it out there. So I think that is a really important factor to consider. And then being ethical, like Mish said, don't use manipulative strategies. Put the user first. So I think that's really at the core of these practices.
Thank you. I think that we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that something for me that's come out in the last few questions is that you still need technical SEO. And so often we seem to not talk about technical SEO when we talk SEO. And so that building block and foundation needs to always exist no matter what. But even amongst ourselves, we're always just reverting to SEO, even though we mean SEO and GEO. And I think that's actually a good thing, in that our own internalized definitions of SEO has expanded to include GEO, and now we need to go out and tell the world. Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you for all the insights and all the time.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Thank you. What a fantastic episode we just had with our two guests, Nicole and Michelle. Thank you so much for your insights. And remember to like, share, and subscribe for more.